Oh, Bretto.
What's up, MP?
Damo just called.
Yeah?
He thinks there's going to be 100,000 people at the Wellness Summit.
Oh, again?
He thinks we're bigger than Michael Jackson, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles all put together.
Damien Christoph has gone completely mad.
Did you know he's made 8 tons of forage?
What?
And now he wants you and I to help him get rid of it.
Oh, Damo.
So look, being the good friends that we are, we've asked him.
You mean forced?
Well, we've kind of twisted his arm to make him literally give his forage away to 100 lucky Wellness Summit attendees.
So if you're ready to enrol for our signature 2 days of inspiration, education and empowerment...
And entertainment.
What do you mean, MP?
Well, Australian Idol winner Wes Carr makes his Wellness Summit debut this year, Bretto.
Wes Carr, you'll be guilty.
So if you're ready to be entertained, head on over to thewellnesssummit.com.
And get 4 value bags of forage muesli or 1 bag each of paleo, muesli, bircher and porridge when you register.
Now, all you need to do is register for this 2-for-1 special, bring a buddy, bring a friend, bring a family member or a colleague.
And then choose your forage selection, 4 muesli or 4 assorted, and get 4 bags per attendee. That's 8 bags per double pass.
That's almost $250 of forage for free when you register for the Wellness Summit on August 25-26 at the Collingwood Town Hall in Melbourne.
That's 150 serves of breakfast, almost 6 months of breakfast just for registering for the Wellness Summit.
Well, it's first in, best dressed. These 100 tickets are only available until June 18 or until sold out.
All the details of this special offer, all the topics, featured speakers and more are over at thewellnesssummit.com.
Thanks for making 8 tons of forage, Damo.
TheWellnessCouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner.
And this week we have a special episode which is called Getting Up Close and Personal with Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, facilitated by the wonderful Lana Sussman of the Parents Village. Welcome, Lana.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Oh, we're so wrapped. So we're in Melbourne and Lana's in Sydney. And we have been talking with you online since it feels like the very beginning of Nourishing the Mother, and have formed just the most gorgeous online relationship. And then you messaged and said, I'm coming out to Melbourne. And we were like, great.
Let's catch up.
I'm like, I really want to interview you guys. I want to be like the Ellen and the Oprah to your Nourishing the Mother. We love.
Yeah.
But we were just talking to you, and you are quite a fascinating woman. So I would really love to hear about, well, probably more sharing with our audience what you do as a drama therapist, which I find such an interesting combination, and that's what we were just speaking about. And then a lead into how your past and your genius have served into what you're doing in the world today. So do you feel like just taking us through that a little bit?
Sure. Well, we were just talking about the fact I'm actually a clinical social worker first. That was my first degree. And then I went to London and studied a master's in drama therapy. And I did this because I was always a performer and loved being on stage and sharing stories and having them witnessed. And also playing with role and character, and just loved exploring different parts of myself, I guess, through those roles.
Has that really served you, like in terms of experiencing your breadth of woman? Has that really served you?
I think so. I think it's helped me be more embodied, I guess, and also to not be fearful of being different, unique, individual, or exploring a different way of being. I seem to kind of move into different roles quite comfortably, and I'm usually the same with everyone that I meet. So I don't feel I have to kind of play a different role. I feel like they're just a part of me. So I think I've kind of integrated that more, I suppose.
So making more safe, you've made your authenticity safe.
Yeah.
Such an interesting paradox, isn't it?
Yeah. So my journey sort of took me to the UK, and I studied drama and movement therapy, a master's. It's now called the Royal College of, what's it called? the Central School of Speech and Drama, the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, that's what it's called, which was kind of a misplaced course within that because it was all actors and performers, and our drama therapy course was there. And drama therapy is really about, look, it's a form of psychotherapy. So people who might want to see a drama therapist would be people who are wanting therapy, wanting to explore and process something that they're going through. But it's about, it's a really safe technique where you can really enter a deep part of yourself without having to feel too much like yourself, for example. So we use a lot of metaphor, a lot of imagination, creativity. We use a lot of different props, and it's story and myth. Yeah, it's really wonderful. It's a really fun space, and it's all about play as well, really being playful. And letting go and exploring and seeing what comes. And you don't have to be you or your version of you. You can explore what that means. And I think that's so healthy.
And how do you think, or why do you think it's powerful as opposed to a talking therapy that keeps you in your mind? Why is it powerful to come down into your body, which is essentially what you do through this process?
I just think the body is just so forgotten. And I know it's something you guys talk about a lot, which I love. It's so much a part of who we are and speaks to us. And, you know, a lot of the research out there about trauma now is all about how actually trauma is stored in our cells, in our body. And particularly with trauma, it can be so releasing to use the body. But something else, I guess, is also just that, you know, there's not often words to describe a feeling that you have. And I think when you are using the body puts emotion into motion. So it's almost like if you trust the body, if we get into the body and the voice and the psyche, which is basically
what's stored in the cells anyway.
Yes, exactly. And your unconscious world, it's about bringing the unconscious conscious in some way, but it doesn't feel scary. Like it's actually it's really deep work, but it feels quite fun and quite gentle as well.
I was going to ask, sorry, Bridge, do you
I was going to think about in terms of it's a great pathway to access so much of our stored trauma, which is likely, you know, our childhood, and entering the way that our inner child wants to be communicated with, which is often through play. I mean, we see our own children's invitations to heal through play all of the time.
That's right.
Is that what you see through the way that play can heal versus the talk therapy?
Yeah. It just enters a completely different realm, and in that way that you probably do see your children going into that space where they're learning, they're processing, they're journeying. We don't really know as adults how to do that, and I know there's been lots of conversations, certainly in your podcast, and certainly, you know, I've had with my troupe at the Parents Village, is just how difficult it is to play with our kids. But it's different when you're playing with a therapist or with adults in a safe space where it's sort of facilitated for you. And I think that's really the missing link. You know, and drama therapy is also a lot about, it's the ritual as well. And ritual is a big part of the work that I do. It's creating that space as well to be able to transform. So it's not just about playing different roles or having an opportunity to embody or use different creative modes to express something. It's also having a space to process, transform, and have a cathartic experience, because I really feel, and this is like what my thesis was about actually, was about how we really lack that, the sort of village elders or the leaders that would take you through a ritual, the milestones.
Those initiations that are natural in life.
Yes, and it seems that in our society all that's left of those people are sort of religious leaders, and they sometimes don't quite cut it, unfortunately, and there's not enough milestone. I mean, you know, you usually have a sort of in some religions, you know, birth ceremonies, marriage ceremonies, and death ceremony. And there's nothing in between. And my God, there is so much in between. And particularly, you know, coming into motherhood. You know, so, you know, that's why things like the blessing ways are so important. But just creating that space. And so drama therapy sessions can be little rituals as well, little milestones that you can come across
that you're led through.
And have an opportunity to process it in a way that's not talking about it necessarily, but actually physically doing it. And in the doing of it, there is such a release. Yeah. So it can be really beautiful, a really beautiful experience.
What do you think about people that are scared to get into their body? How do you think drama therapy moves them through? Is it the slowness or the ability to be in a ritual that allows them the safe passageway through?
I think it's all of those things. I think it's also having that modelled for you as well, I think is so powerful. Like we don't have those leaders to show us through. Like it was so normal back in a very village-like time to have that. It was just part of life. And I really believe that, you know, I can see how our society sort of tried to bring it back, but they just haven't known how to do it. Yeah, like with the bucks nights, the hens nights. It's like that it's a ritual, right? Like they want to do something, but it's about alcohol, it's about penis straws.
It's very surface level, shallow.
Yes,
it's not able to access depth.
Exactly. And that's why you know, and one thing that we offer at the Parents Village as well is these blessing ways, which I know, and Julie's written a fantastic book as well about that, which is...
This is about you,
gorgeous. I know. It's about all of us. But really to give that space to transition. It's just one of...
so much voice.
Totally. And children are very ritualistic. They really need that, and to give them space. So having that kind of understanding is really important, I think, as well. Yeah.
So tell us about the work that you're doing now.
I and my partner in crime, Kirsty Levin, who will be listening to this podcast and as soon as it is released, we started up the Parents Village, which is started off as a perinatal support service, but we really are servicing beyond that. So it's sort of perinatal and parenting support service. Kirsty's a psychologist and a career coach, and I'm a clinical social worker and drama therapist. And we provide services that support families, women and their partners and families, really prenatally and beyond. So we do a Birthing the Parent course because we really felt there was such a gap. Everything was so birth focused. Yeah. And, you know, we were sort of tired of hearing people say, why didn't people tell us it was so hard? And we would love what we aim to do, and what I feel we do is really empower and let people, like, it's sort of like, parenting 101, that kind of the transition 101, like let's just go in there with you, show you, tell you all the little secrets and hints and tips so you feel empowered.
So you have the toolkit without having to scramble.
The toolkit, exactly. And I think that really, when you feel prepared, when you have education, I think you're so much better off. So, we do that, and, I provide counselling to individuals, to couples, I do therapy with kids. Kirsty does careers coaching and counselling, which is fantastic because particularly motherhood, as you guys know, really shakes it up, and so many mums, but she does support a lot of dads too, actually think, I can't do this anymore. Like, so it doesn't feel right. I'm different. Things are different. I can't sustain this anymore. But what can I do? And Kirsty's just fantastic at really helping them get onto a different path, really find out what are their, what their values are, and how they can sort of move forward in a different way.
So why the Parents Village?
Well, the old saying, and we say it takes a village to raise a parent, actually, because we're really about supporting the parents.
It's dead set true.
Yeah. And I think it started because, actually Kirsty rocked up at my doorstep when I had my daughter, because she's...
So you were already friends?
We were friends. Her brother is a really close friend of mine from the past, and I think we always sort of had girl crushes on each other, and always like, how's your sister? And then when I had my daughter, I think my friend must have said to her, maybe just go and knock on Lana's door to see how she's doing, because I think it was at that 4-month mark, you know, when you're sort of the sleep regression
and the hormones.
Oh my
worn
God.
off.
Yeah. And I think I was just sort of like a bit, you know, catatonic.
Shell-shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just rocked up at my door. She goes, I'm just going to drop these little books off. And she just said, look, it's really hard, isn't it? I was like, yeah, it's really hard. But I'd always had this real desire to work with mothers. And my first social work placement was at the Royal Hospital for Women in Sydney. And I just remember thinking, this is just such a huge part of life. And like, what space is being held for this time? So I think I've always felt like really drawn to that, even way before I became a mum, like sort of talking, you know, 10 years ago. So we kind of got together and I picture it in my mind as this sort of dramatic Jerry Maguire type scene where it's like, who will come with me? Because like I knew that she wanted to do this work, but she was in a corporate job and I was, you know, my daughter was, I think about 14 months. I'm like, I just really want to get back into a sort of juicy work again. And I'd had a private practice and felt like I wanted to work with someone. And so I was like, you know, what about if we do this together? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And she quit her job and we did this together.
Powerful.
Yeah. So, and it's
Has
just
that
been
belief
great.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So we really love what we do and we've got our own village and, we just love, you know, providing, I guess, we call it re-villaging in some way and just being a support, having a place for people to come to where they can connect and get a variety of different services and feel like they can, you know, there can be like a touch point for people.
And I just find this so incredible. This is just a perfect example of how your whole life and all of its voids that have transpired over the course of that have come together to this one perfect meeting place where something is reborn out of the transition of maiden to mother. Like I just think this stuff blows my mind because we're so cultured to think we're less when we go through this transition as opposed to what a culmination and creation that you've birthed right through the process of entering the depths of that. Like just love it.
Totally. Yeah. I think and I really believe, I say this to clients all the time, like I really believe that having kids breaks you into a million pieces and then it just makes you. And we are full of these. Like
you need a village to take you there, though.
You do.
Yeah,
you do.
that's so
to pick up the
important for that to
pieces.
be supported.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So how do we get in touch with you? What's your...
So come find us on www.theparentsvillage.com.au. We also have a Facebook group, which is the Parents Village Sydney, and we'd love to hear from you and that's how you can connect.
Yeah, we'll make sure we put it all in the show notes.
Yeah, great
as well. But
great.
Thank you. It's so lovely to have the background on who you are and the journey you've come to. I think it's always beautiful to hear another woman's journey.
Yeah,
particularly when she's willing to show up and say, this was really hard and this was really painful, and then it turned into this.
Yeah,
like I think there's something inspiring about that.
I think whenever we can see, you know, the dots join in someone's life like that, it just shows you how perfect things line up.
Yeah, and I think that's the way it's sort of meant to be in some way. I think just to be inspired by
women inspire other women.
Yes, and also to be inspired by the growth that you've undergone yourself, and then
to have gratitude for it.
Yeah, you've walked the path, you get it. You know, I think that creates, you know, a better service, or whatever your service is, in your life, you know.
Nothing's random.
So, yeah. But nourishing the mother.
Yes. So here we are.
Has been a huge part of my journey and of so many people. I think, you know, I certainly feel hugely grateful for what you guys have provided us because, you know, I think that it's hard for women sometimes to find the right people to be able to speak a language that they might have in their own heads, because you might have some fabulous girlfriends or, you know, even partners who can meet certain needs in that way. You can talk about things, but you know, I feel like there's such a beautiful quality about the conversations you guys have, which certainly feels really aligned with, you know, obviously the way I think, and I think how so many mums do feel. And I just it's so relieving. It really is like a tonic. And I always sort of feel like I said to you both when I arrived, it's like seeing my besties. Because even though I'm not talking when I'm listening to the podcast, I feel like I've had this amazing D&M with
a friend,
with a really close friend, and that is such a gift. Because
what a gift!
Yeah,
the village
really
is transformed, hasn't it?
Yes, yeah. I had to grieve that actually when I found out the village has to transform to online and podcast, because I'm so about like seeing people in person and whatever. But actually, you know, even just the experience of having you guys in my life in that way, I'm like, but hey, look what Nourishing the Mother's done for me and for so many others. Like, like
an all number of podcasts and online communities. Like, you can't judge that. We want to say social media is bad and blah, 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 blah. But there's so many benefits to it.
Yeah. It's all about the balance and what you guys bring. So yeah, I just, you know, I guess that what I wanted to do was just sort of go through some questions and have a chat about a little bit more about Bridget and Julie. And they look a bit frightened right now as they're looking at me.
I'm thinking it because because Lana's in our tribe private Facebook group, and she put this question out to everyone. You know, like who's got some burning questions they want to ask, and I know that a few people PM'd you. And so we got no idea what's coming up.
Yes,
but absolutely. The reason I'm looking like that is because my son is playing footy at the Oval at the end of Bridget Street here, and I just got a call to say he's walking back up. So at some point we're going to press stop while I sort him out in the room. Okay. And then I'm coming back. So just so you know, at some point we'll stop and then we'll start again.
Okay, no problem. So what I wanted to know was, what were your first impressions of each other? I know you guys met.
Yeah, we met at playgroup.
I want to know what you really thought when you first saw each other.
I'll tell you, because I remember that moment like I was love struck. Really? I think it's totally. So I remember sitting. So this is my third child, and you don't get offered into mothers groups or anything like that once you're past your first child. But I had such a huge gap, and I had no friends that had children of any age similar to my third, because I had such a big gap. So often what happens is you make really excellent friends with the people that you meet in your first child's experience of everything. So of mother's group, of kinder, of school, you tend to stay with that group. And so there's a bit of a joke, like even at school mums, where you go, well, you know, but I'm a third-time mum and she wants to be friends with me because she's a first-time mum and I just don't have time. I don't even have space in my world. You know, and so by the time you get to number 3, there was like no one. So I'm thinking, my God, this child needs some company. I need some company for people that are, you know.
Because you had 2 at school by that point.
Yeah.
So you had 2 at school and Lola as a baby.
Yeah. So I was like, right. Back when my other 2 were little, I found natural parenting playgroup just been the most amazing space to meet my people. And so I went, that's what I'm going to do again. So I researched, found my local natural parenting playgroup, rocked up, and it was all the types of people who I love but who I expected. Granola mums, lots of baby wearing, lots of extended breastfeeding, lots of, you know, organic type talk. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. I like this. So this will be nice for, you know, a couple of hours a week. And then Bridget walked in the room and I was like, and I'm pretty sure the sun was shining so that her golden hair had a halo around it. I'm fairly sure. And she had on this incredible rocking outfit and this like little mini skirt with leggings under it. And I was like, who is this woman? I really like her.
Oh my God.
And Bridget swanned in and I think released her, you know, baby off of her back or whatever. I feel like it was, but I don't think you were back wearing by then. But in my head, that's the picture I have. Just like released her baby off of her back, Jennifer, and I'm like, yes. I like you so much already. Isn't
that so funny? The first impressions that we form of people, it just shows you how much you make up that in your mind in like 10 seconds.
Yeah. And then you sat down next to me because I was on the floor with my baby. And you just started some conversation. I'm like, oh my God, she's really intelligent too.
It's like a love story.
That's my first impression. I was completely and utterly infatuated. But I think there's genius to those infatuations.
Yeah.
There's such a heart body opening to certain people. And I don't think there's any accident in that.
Well, first impressions are actually really important. I think Malcolm Gladwell talks about that. Like it's the first impression that actually is the correct one.
Yeah, and I think you've got something ridiculous like 6 seconds and people have already made up their mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was how I first met Bridget. And then we just started seeing each other at playgroup once a week. And then we were doing cool things at playgroup, like doing big mama bakes together. So we'd all cook stock together and we'd all, like just really nurturing, nourishing stuff. And then, I think I made the first move and said, would you like to come over for a coffee? Shall we swap numbers? Which always feels like a first date, doesn't it? Like
It's hard to do that.
It?
Like it's not, it
is like dating kind of.
It's really like dating. Is she going to like me? Is my house okay? What is she going to think? You played with all of these teenage-esque. Anyway, so we just started and then we just hit it off. We just had amazing conversations and you were such a classic. I just felt such a classic first time attachment parenting mum. And I remember one of the first jarring moments I had with us where I thought, whoa, okay, this is the challenge in friendship is when I started talking about, because when you came over, had to always take Hugo outside whenever he got grizzly because he wasn't happy inside and he was only ever happy outside.
I don't remember that.
So when he was grizzly and whingy, we had to go outside to make him happy.
Really?
I don't think you remember pre-aware parenting.
I don't really.
But that was and I remember gently saying, about tears and your first reaction to it was really like intense where, I felt like that defensiveness that come on. And I was like, that's cool, but I can feel that. And then I remember it must have got intense on this one, but I was like, what would happen if we just stayed inside and he got upset and you were quite affronted by it? And I remember thinking, I've crossed a line here with my friend, who I really like and I want her to like me and I've just kind of offended her. That's always an awkward feeling. Yeah. And then as you do, you go mental 1,000 miles a minute as you're processing something. I remember you calling me seriously 24 hours later and going, so I've been thinking about this. And you had done 180, maybe even 360 degree turn into wanting to find out about aware parenting. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, we're good. She's my friend and we can now be friends.
But isn't that growth, right? Isn't that how those close friendships take you to those edges to then grow through? And I'm so immensely grateful for that because I can see how I was so anxious. I was pretty highly anxious first time mother. And I can still remember.
He's not though,
I know.
He's not.
But I think for me, I was so determined to raise this conscious,
get it
connected,
right.
In tune with themselves child who wasn't broken because obviously I perceived myself somehow broken at that point.
Yeah.
That I was trying to give him all of this stuff and I can so put myself back there. But I didn't know I did that with the whole going outside.
Yeah, we had to keep going outside out into my backyard.
But also I would imagine it would be pretty intense to meet Julie, who's a third-time mum.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I had my first, I was like, how do people have more of this? Because it's...
I remember being terrifying of even when Hugo was a baby, of even thinking that toddlers were these awful things. Because I couldn't put myself...
so jarring.
I couldn't put myself there then. But I can remember meeting Julie. And it was actually the first time I remember meeting you was at a cafe and you had come into the cafe.
Oh, I came with my sister, didn't I, to test out the group before I went to the official play group.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You had
I forgot
Lola
that.
on your back.
When it comes to our sexuality, we want to look at the beliefs and the meanings that we've picked up as much as the ones that we've made up about our experiences.
In our Loathing to Loving program, we look at relationships to our family, partner, children and feminine self and spend a module in Nourish and Nurture, deeply expanding that feminine wisdom. Our Sensuality and Sexuality course is the next dive exclusive to those who've taken part in the Loathing to Loving program.
The reason for that is the theory and the tools that you gain from Loathing to Loving underpin the knowledge of the psychosexual story that we build upon in our Sensual Sexual Deep Dive. For $289, you can join us in our exclusive Sensuality Sexuality course or 3 payments of $97. We really want to walk you through loving your sexuality more than your sex life.
To find out more and join us, go to nourishingthemother.com.au/online programs.
All right, we're back. My son is in the house. We're going to continue on.
So I was
Bridget,
saying,
you met me in a cafe.
met you in a cafe, and I remember you had this beautiful, like, kind of dark coloured, like, lined wrap with Lola in the back.
Oh, I loved that sling.
And she was only like 8 weeks old or something. And you just were
I
like,
back wall with her
you did.
early. Yeah.
And you just seemed to have this whole like motherhood thing nailed. Because she was just flung on your
What
back.
an illusion.
And I thought, this woman's like, she's a seasoned mother and she's just so intriguing. And I can see such depth here and such richness. And I just want to know more. And I think because I was so in that depths of that, nothing artificial will pass my son's lips, and this was a naturopath, and a doula, and I was just so fascinated. So I think I was just mesmerized, and I don't remember much more about that particular meeting, but remembering that, I hope she comes again was sort of how I felt. And then one of the most pivotal times was when I used to come around on like Monday nights because it was like your craft night.
Oh, that's right. I was running craft nights. I forgot that.
You're running craft nights, and so often no one else turned up. It was just me, and I didn't even do craft because I don't know how to do craft.
But how did you do craft with like so many kids and babies?
I was always Monday nights because my husband plays basketball on a Monday night, so he was rarely home. And so Mondays always felt enormously long to me. So I would often do something on a Monday night with my friends because it was my way of breaking up what seemed like a really isolated period of time. I had forgotten that. And so I was running craft nights, but my kids have always been, I think like you, Lana, incredibly clear on bedtime. This is when you're up with me. And this is when you're not.
I love your boundaries around that and like how much permission you've given me and other mums to do that.
Yeah.
I also am super, like with whoever I speak to, I'm like, you can be boundaried about it and it's totally okay.
You're
going to actually get great sleeping kids on those boundaries.
And great relationships as a result too.
Yeah, exactly. So I always had my kids in bed by, 7 or whatever, and they were always great. Like they weren't necessarily always asleep, but they were happy just to lie there. Even I know that my daughter, I think, and my son, even just are happy just to listen, which I remember as a kid, just to listen to the natter and, the clanging of dishes and just the sense of I'm safe and there's someone home. I don't think you can underestimate what a gift it is to feel safe at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I used to have these craft nights because I freaking love craft. And women, when they are doing a monotonous activity, I think there's very something regressive about it. And I think we can access parts of our psyche, parts of our hearts, part of our story when we're distracted with the doing of something that's rhythmic.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a mini women's circle, I suppose, and it would depend. Sometimes people would turn up and sometimes they wouldn't. And
it's also you created a little village of women. That's what women would do. Like they would weave together or they would cook together. It's bringing that village in. We're so isolated now, so it's actually genius to do that.
Yes. So
but looking back, that's really where I think Nourishing the Mother was born, was out of those conversations on those Monday nights.
Really?
And I remember one time, like, you would hold me in uncomfortable feelings for longer than I'd ever been held in them before, which was a little bit disconcerting sometimes, but then so profound to be witnessed like that. And I never had felt like that before. And so I think that provided such a safety, in our relationship and also in motherhood, to be this place of expansion as opposed to like service and doing and giving all and sacrifice, which can be, it can be painted as that, right? And so, and I remember like looking forward to those Monday nights, and it was really nice.
Oh, that's so lovely to hear because I'd totally forgotten that.
It's funny.
It's actually really nice that you're taking us back here.
Isn't it nice? Because we never really had this conversation.
No, we haven't.
Well, I just love, I often actually ask people, like if we're out for dinner, like, what was your love story? Like, because it's such a nice, and I love hearing it from different, like one couple talking about, because you guys are a couple.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a love
yeah,
story.
yeah.
And it's like, I love, everyone's got their love story about how they met, and it's just, it's really beautiful because you guys are such a team, and it's a dynamic, and there is very much both of your personalities, which are very different but very aligned in some ways, and it's just really interesting to have, like, I feel certainly that, like, I've gone on a journey with you guys and how you guys have also developed in your own ways as well. So, yeah, I wondered, like, what you thought
Of each other.
But also how do you feel you've developed over the course of nourishing the mother, like since you first started? Because it's been going for like 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
Like, what's, maybe just name like the biggest
Need some drama
development.
therapy. You can't even put words to it.
I think it's so much
have a
more,
sound
so
and a
much more
movement.
grounded in myself. A lot less concern about how I think I should be, and really in more of a place of making more parts of myself okay, which is essentially what we're wanting our tribe to feel, right? Like, it's about, you know, noticing those edges instead of shoving them down, you know, noticing those spaces within us that feel scary or not okay, and even the parts of our, you know, in our children that we struggle with and what that brings up for us is just making more more acceptance, I suppose.
It's normalizing it and modeling that normalizing, and that's sort of what you know, we teach parents to do with their kids. It's like, you've got to normalize, like, we've got to normalize it. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have big feelings, right?
Yeah.
And you guys normalize it for us.
Yeah.
It's okay to share your deepest thoughts about things and to have them heard by a friend and to have them heard in general. I think that's
to show up.
Yeah, like that's a
to
really
give
big
voice
thing.
to those depths. And I think too that, and for so many mothers who are motivated by giving the best that they can to their children, you know, what pulls mothers on the journey with us is the truth that to make more of those parts of yourself okay, you're then giving that permission to your child.
That's right.
You know, like even yesterday, Hugo and I were looking through a box of old baby things, and he was flicking through his book of him that I'd made, and he started sort of crying, and I wasn't sure if it was about the book or about something else that we'd been working through that morning. But he said to me later, I was feeling really sad because I was feeling I was crying because that book made me feel really happy, and they were happy tears. And you know, we've developed such a language around feelings and around making more feelings okay, that I was just so grateful in that moment that he felt safe enough to express that with me.
Yeah.
You know, because I can also see where if we push too hard for that, they close that.
Totally.
So, you know, just the gentle invitations that I can give to make more spectrum okay gives him the safety to feel like he could speak that.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't
You know,
it?
so, and that's such a testament, I think, to our own journeying and willingness to show up in all parts of ourselves on this journey that gives our children permission to make more of themselves okay too in the home.
That's right. And, you know, it's the mirror that you guys provide as well. Because I think we all sort of sit there and go, yep, I can really connect with, you know, something about Julie's story.
We're all
Bridget's story.
mirrors.
We're all mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much nodding, basically, that goes on.
No, totally. And you only ever see in someone or hear whatever you need to hear in order to grow in that moment.
Totally.
You know, which is why you could listen to the same podcast over the course of 3 years and get something different out of it each time because you are at a new evolution. I find that extraordinary.
Yeah. So, Julie, what about you? How do you feel you've developed the most?
I would say I'm less polarized. I think that has been my biggest gift from being on this journey with you, Bridget, which I'm so immensely grateful for because there's so much pain in being utterly sure that this is right and this is wrong.
God, there is, isn't there?
So much pain. And yet we defend it with so much vigor. Whatever our position is, we defend and fight against the world in order to feel righteous. And I can certainly see not dissing polarizations either, because there's the conversation you and I were having earlier. I totally see how they serve and how the void or the pain served my desire to meet that so intensely, and how my journey on that has then sought the polarization swing to the other side so I get to balance it out. I totally see the purpose in it, but I can also see how wounded I was through teenage years and certainly my 20s by virtue of being in one pendulum swing or another, because I could never find a centered place, So I'm always swinging.
Yeah.
So I think the gift of my 30s and nourishing the mother has been I can make an empowered choice that feels authentic to me because I can see both sides without having to literally walk them.
Yeah.
That's right. And you can change your mind.
Yeah. And be okay with changing your mind and not having to, think who's going to judge me or what, wrong or
that's
right. Or, just to sit beyond that place of right and wrong entertain the full spectrum of possibility.
Totally.
And you can also pick and choose. Like I love, that, and certainly a journey I've gone on, but also through you guys as well, is it's okay to like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I don't have to be.
You don't have to box yourself
That's
into
right.
one.
There's some, like I love aware parenting, and there's some stuff I think
that's not for me.
That's
Totally.
Like I got no problem with, dummies and whatever else.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a intense thing, but I love being, that idea of just really being with the feeling and allowing. And, there might be a time when I'll change my mind about that. And I think that's okay.
Or some days you're okay with being with that and some days you're not.
Yeah.
I think it's really healthy. So that's really beautiful.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, that's the conversation we were having, but I think that's been my biggest gift by virtue of being in close proximity to you, Bridget.
A question that quite a few of your tribe, our tribe, was around like who are your teachers? Where do you get your where do you feel most of your wisdom has come from? There's been a lot of, and I know that I know you've Bridget's got a lot from, is it John?
DeMartini.
Yeah, DeMartini.
He'd be my number one.
He's your number one guy?
Yeah.
What about you, Jules? It might not even be like a guru or person. It could be like your husband. I mean.
Yeah.
Look, the answer that comes to mind is actually the women that I've been friends with, whoever they are in those journey, whoever those sort of close women, which is that whole saying of you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? I actually think I've learned the most because I've always managed, I think we all do this, I've always managed to have people in my proximity that probably affirm me enough but challenge me enough. And not challenge me by virtue of needing to have an argument or hash out a point, but just by simply being and embodying something that's completely foreign or different to me.
Yeah.
And through virtue of kind of hitting that, clashing against that, witnessing that, I've been shown something different. And that I think has been my biggest teacher. What I've talked about on the podcast all the time, these women around me that I would have judged, they would have said this was wrong or this was right or, and I get to balance that the ways that I would have thought this is so right. And then I see women who were the so right on that polarization get hit by the opposite. And I think, that wasn't so right. And then watching what I thought was so wrong, and I see how that so works for them and that unit all their life. And I think, that wasn't so wrong.
Yeah.
So I actually think if you're willing to be open to the lessons and the way that your world is constantly talking to you, constantly, by what your kids say, by what they do, by what they don't do, by what, people around you say to you, by what they show you, which is really just you noticing the thing that you need to notice.
Yeah.
I think that's how I constantly, and then having someone like our tribe or like Bridget where I can go, oh my God, I've just noticed this. Oh, this is coming up for me. And to be able to have the space to nut that out has been so huge. Other than that, I would say the biggest pivotal teacher for me was probably Rhea Dempsey. So she's who I did my doula training with, and she was probably the first woman who showed me a really easeful and deep way of entering ritual. And she showed me the pathway to accessing the pain that is stored in women's bodies. And she gave me my first toolkit for working through that. And I will always be forever grateful for her for literally showing me. I mean, in that circle where I spent a year with her in circle was just still some of the most profound life lessons I think I'll ever learn. So I think she was probably my biggest teacher in terms of trauma and knowing women's bodies through trauma. And I don't have any one guru of that because I'm always on, like you guys, I'm always on my own quest for whatever the thing is that's in my vicinity, which is usually something to do with embodiment or sex, because that's still my biggest pain point for me. So I think I'm never going to fill that void. I'm always going to be questing after that. And I completely see the purpose in feeling like I never know enough or it's never enough is because I'm always, who's next? You know, and once I start one person, I like ravish everything they've got in the world. And then through virtue of that, it'll open up the next person and I'll ravish everything they've got in the world. And I think that is also the gift of where we're at now is podcasts and audio books and blogs.
Yeah. There's so much knowledge available
we have
to
access
us.
to people in a way we have never before had access. And I find that extraordinary that you can, those 5 people closest to you can be someone in your head.
Yeah.
Or in your ear, I should
Which
say.
just really shows that, you know, even more so than ever before, perhaps, we really can create profound change in our lives and lives of our own by virtue of who we surround ourselves with and what we surround ourselves and what possibility we're willing to grant ourselves.
And it's amazing because you know, you guys are both not therapists and haven't done any kind of study or more traditional study in that stuff. And I've had, you know, friends come to me and say, like, what do they study? Like, who are they? Like, you know,
and we reel off these people, but I mean, ultimately, it's a lifetime.
It is, but it goes to show
of accumulated knowledge. And I mean, even for me, like, I did an enormous amount of reading and, I suppose, embodiment around relationship, you know, in my journey with my husband. And in fact,
and what is an expert? Like, what is it, 10,000 hours to be an expert in something? Isn't that what the...
And I think, you know, we're really, everybody's waking up to the power of self-education now. And the reality that lived experience so often trumps anything that you can go and learn. And so, you know, for me, training as a journalist and, you know, media professional, I suppose, really that just fuels the desire to learn and consume and question and challenge, and so that thirst for knowledge has paved the way to everything else.
Yeah, it's all those transferable skills, isn't it? That kind of comes into it. And
well, there's nothing random when you start to look back on your life and you realise, oh, that was the seed that led to this, that led to that. That now that makes sense.
Yeah. And I was reading some when we were going through this box of stuff, because Hugo is just really wanting to, you know, he's at that age where he's just wanting to create little pockets of his own and create, I suppose, ritual and lovely spaces. And so he was wanting to look through boxes of cards and letters. And so I'd found like old anniversary cards from me and Marcus, and you know, I'd said to him in one of the letters, you know, or one of the cards, you know, our relationship was one of my greatest achievements and what I'm most proud of. And that was because it's been such a new work. You know, I've looked at it, I've looked to it as a teacher for me. I've looked to it as not simply, you know, love, but love as a lesson, you know, and how to keep showing up for love and what that looks like and how to intentionally grow through that. And I think that even that in itself paves the way for everything else to click in. You know, when you look to relationship to teach you like that.
Well, it's like an intention, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can enter anything with an intention.
I think really what's amazing is like the generosity that you both have to share your knowledge. And I think that's really, really special, because I guess, you know, usually it is sort of like this guru thing that's like studied for 1,000 years and then now is going to impart this wisdom. And it just goes to show it's actually both the journeys that you've gone on separately and together, but it's the generosity and the willingness to be able to share that is just such a gift, I think, to all of us.
Thank you.
Because that's, I think, you know, if you ask, well, what's you know, the tribe members were saying, well, where do they get their wisdom from? Well, maybe, you know, what is wisdom? Maybe wisdom is the sharing of the journey that you've been on. I mean,
I think that's the difference between a feminine way of being a leader versus a masculine way of being a leader.
it's quite yin. Yeah. Just the unfolding.
I also know that you and I, Bridget, both hold in extreme esteem that we are no more full of wisdom than anyone.
Yes.
Because literally every single person has this unique spot in the world with a very unique set of experiences that have led to a very unique way of seeing the world, which has led to a very unique wisdom. And I think the more that you get clear on your unique footprint, wisdom and ability to serve this world, the more you have utter reverence and humility for how that exists in literally everyone.
Yeah.
There's not a single person that I meet that I think, I know more than you.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a ridiculous notion anyway, isn't it? When you realise that we have all spent our lifetimes organising information and organising our perceptions of the world to fit a very, very narrow sliver of what the world could be. So everybody has their own level of mastery or wisdom in what's most important to them. And for us, it's simply this space, this journey of motherhood, this journey of conscious intention around mothering and parenting and reflection. And
So maybe that really is the missing link is for if people are wondering, you know, like how could I be so wise? It's just you already are. You just need to share it if you or not. But
you've got to see it in yourself.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be willing enough to show up. And that is hard. Like Bridget and I have conversations about that, which I'm quite sure you would too, Lana. We have conversations about that all the time, is how hard is it to be you and be you and be you and be open, because the more you're willing to be you, the more you open yourself up to judgment and criticism.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is shut down more of us so that we can be safe and no one can judge us because we're fitting in versus here's all of me, right? The shit and the shine. Are you going to like me? It's kind of like our first coffee date.
It's incredibly vulnerable, and you really need to, it's about getting comfortable with rejection. You know, and I think, you know, I've certainly got way more comfortable with rejection from the outer world. But, you know, that's still deeply painful to face within our intimate relationships. You know, and it's something that, you know, you and I talk about often. There's like degrees of getting okay with that. Until you hit a new edge.
Such a strong mirror, the relationship as well. Like it's quite intense. Well, one of the questions I actually had was around what are some of the most difficult thoughts that you guys internally fight with, because we're talking about wisdom, we're talking about showing up. You know, like, you know, just, you know, I feel like we all have these sort of sayings or
Mine's I don't know enough.
Right.
And that is something you not constantly, but that you're willing to be open and say to me, but I still feel like I don't know enough. I still feel like we can't because I don't have enough. I still feel, you know, and we constantly are kind of hashing that out going, but you already do, you know. But that's that whole void and value thing.
But and I've really been sitting that because like lately I've been like, you know, sitting in that space of, you know, maybe I'm not going to have any more children. And like, what does that look like? And like, who am I? And like, am I okay to just be this? And you know, that transition from that really sure career of like corporate and what's expected of you and who I get to create in myself now. And like, that can be a deeply uncomfortable place to sit. And part of that is making okay who am I as I am, you know, and being willing to say, I have this to offer the world and I can serve this corner of the world and be okay with that.
It's that beautiful saying of just I am enough, isn't it? And, you know, Donald Winnicott, the famous child psychotherapist, has got this, his concept of the good enough mother.
I don't know that. What is
it? Yeah. No, that's his concept is a mother doesn't have to be, you know, incredible or beyond the mother just has to be good enough.
Oh no, I have heard this. Yeah.
And I love that. I just love that because I think we always have these sort of, thoughts we fight with. And sometimes it's sort of like, what's the peacemaker thought as well? Like what's the one that just comes and says, you're enough. But, it's interesting that, Bridget, that's your fighting word because you have such a thirst for knowledge. It's
Right.
Like,
So how much does it serve?
And so I need that, right?
Yeah.
I need that. And I've also been sitting in this place of like really, because knowing this whole idea of your voids drive your values. And if you don't have a void big enough for something, then you tend to just, you can flake out on lots of things in life if your void's not big enough to fuel you. So I've really come around to appreciating just how much I need to believe that. Yeah. Because if I believe I know everything, then what do I do? Yeah. Because
where does it go to from there?
Exactly.
I know everything.
And I mean, look, there's a whole host of things that can go wrong with that kind of belief. But that anxiety that sometimes comes up when not knowing enough creates the drive and the thirst and the fuel to create more service, to show up more, to expand more. And that's my mission. So I'm very grateful for that.
You guys should see Julie's face right now. She's just like loving on Bridget. It's so nice to actually see the visual.
Lights me up. Like it just lights me up. I love these whenever women are like in there. You can feel, I think your body has such a barometer for truth, doesn't it? Yeah. And it wouldn't matter who you're in conversation with. I think when they're speaking a deep truth of their own, my whole body just
opens
up.
up.
Feel it. Yeah.
What about you, Jules? What's your, what do you fight with? What message, self-message do you fight with?
I'm too much, I think would be my biggest one. So I can see how I integrated that really early in life, really early. And I can see how that totally played out with my relationship with both my parents, with my relationship with my sister, with bullying and friendships in school, and in the path that I chose, the boys that I dated. I can see how I've constantly tried to fraction myself into what I think is enough for you without being too much that you'll still stay and like me,
to the fear of rejection.
Yeah, or that just if I really am everything, that's too much and you'll run from me. And even now as an adult, like I even have said, I've just started running monthly women's circles for the women that I'm in a school mums group with. And that was freaking massive for me and still is, because I'm pulling together everything that I have learned since being in circles from when I was 15, because I was that kid who was into the witchy stuff and into my whole life. I can totally see now in my 30s how it's all like clink, 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 coming back together. But I can see how hard that is for me to really pull everything that I thought was only okay here and only okay there and only in private and only with this person, to really fully do all of it and go, I really honestly believe your vagina is incredibly important, and your womb and your breasts and your body, and I am going to make you in this space feel that. And that's still, like, my heart rate is going now. That still terrifies me because it's so important for me, because it is my story.
Yeah.
And it's the parts that I've always shut down. Like I can be wild and sexy here, but not there. And I can be so interested in depth. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been told growing up, you're just too deep. It's too much.
Wow.
I can't have that conversation. Where's the small chat?
I fucking hate small chat though.
People don't want to do that, Julie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
And so I can see how that has completely fueled my desire to sort myself out, to get to the point where I'm like, and what is extraordinary is now I witness all of these women who,
are drawn to your too muchness.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who go,
because they want a piece of that.
yes,
right.
and who go, well, of course you didn't fit in, because why would you want to?
Yeah.
You know, and who I also noticed that by virtue of just me showing them more, they start to reflect more of me. Like, it's the craziest, like, it's actually sometimes makes me go, this world is like blowing my mind, to the point where these women I would have judged even last year would have said, oh no, I couldn't talk to them about yonis and vagina breathing and, you know, all of this stuff. And then, you know, one of them posted on our Facebook group this morning. She's like, I just feel like you penetrate my heart. And I was like, and you think you don't know Tantra? Because she had said to me like a month ago, I've got this book, Julie, and it has no positions and I have no idea what it is. And I was like, this is what blows my mind, right? This is synchronicity in how we are already everything, because she thinks she doesn't know, but by virtue of just witnessing whatever it is she witnesses in me, she's already like, whoosh, that wisdom has already come conscious from what was already unconscious. So it wasn't that I've given her that wisdom. It's the fact that by being in the presence of someone who shows up, it unlocks what was already there.
That's right. And that's what the whole thing, like I was saying with you guys, that you are beautiful models for us in that way, that you guys model what we need to see or to hear, because it gives us courage. Because what you're talking about now, to me, it's courage. Like you both have had the courage to push the limits and say, we're going to ask each other these questions. We're going to talk about this stuff and we're going to share it with all of you guys. And not only that, you talk about the path that you've come from, which it's, you know, in no way, you know, perfect, but it was so perfect.
Right.
And I think that is what, you know, we need to hear. And we need to hear, too much is going, to me, is like about going beyond something, pushing a limit. And we need too muchch-ness, because otherwise,
What's possible?
What's possible? Like, think of every leader in the world, aside from Trump.
But even
But he
him.
serves a purpose. I've been, you know,
I
interested in that
know.
one.
But, you know, they've all, like anyone who's had any kind of impact has been too much
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
some way. And it takes a lot of courage, I think.
It
to sort of
does, because you
step
have to be
into
open.
that.
Have to be open to the haters when you fully open yourself.
That's right.
And what's DeMartini's quote that you only?
Yeah, if or he says, you know, if you're not pissing off half the world, then you're not on purpose. You know, and
Because there's a balance. You can't be all one way and affirmed, because you have to be balanced.
yeah. So anybody who's a leader, you can see that half the world loves them and half the world hates them. Yeah, that there's and that is there as a purpose, because if you're not willing to stand up, if you're just, you know, playing it nice with everybody, then you're not really
It's not your
being
truth.
authentic, because our authentic self is not here to be like everybody else.
No, so clear on who they are that they trigger people.
Yeah, right.
And that is where we find ourselves. And we do
Yeah.
sometimes think, like we even say whenever we put something out in the world, to some extent we're waiting for the backlash of that,
Yeah.
because you almost know you're in your truth when you start to receive that.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
you're so clear on your mission.
And we
your
know
voice.
that we know how niche we are. Like, we know that we are not
Yeah.
for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, and we're really okay
We're
with
too
that.
much for some people.
We are too much, and I know that I'm sure that I've had, like, I know, like, awkward situations with, you know, like school mums who I've come on too strong with, you know, like, you know, probably in kinder, not so much the school mums get me, like, because, you know, I've kind of, you know, we're all intentional Montessori kind of people, like they're open to that stuff. But I know that, like, I've had people here and they have
also
to come
probably-
again because I know I'm too much, you know, like that whole where I want to go is where I go here on this podcast.
That's
And
right.
that's not for everyone.
And it's totally okay, but you're perfect for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, for so many.
But that's like all of
Amazing.
us.
Totally.
The more you show up with that really truthful, authentic yearning, there's no accidents that you're passionate about the things that you are. There's
Yeah.
no accidents you've gone on the path you have to resource yourself with the stuff you've needed to get through the really hard times. Like, there's none of that is an accident.
Yeah.
And that just blows my mind that we can be so on path when we feel like we're so off path. And that when we get to that point, we realize it's a service.
And I think part of it is also stepping in and finding the courage to also own that we recognize that in some spaces in our life, we need to acknowledge the other person and use the art of communication to recognize that this is not the topic for that person, or this is not the topic
right.
for that place. Because the reality is, you know, we create nourishing the mother, because we want this path of consciousness, because we don't really have these conversations with
We're
our,
looking for
with
a
our-
pocket.
Yeah, and we don't have them, you know, with our husbands, because it's not really their thing. And what a gift that is, therefore, because if we had this thirst for expanded conversation and depth with them, we wouldn't have this.
That's right.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and it's just that reminder that we have people in our lives to serve a myriad different things for us, and because of how diverse we are as people.
That's
Yes.
right.
And I think that's one of the major problems with intimate relationships, particularly long-term monogamous ones, is the idea and the concept that you need to be all things
Yes.
to me.
Yeah. Which is totally unfair and unrealistic.
Completely. Versus when you talk about the village, Lana, I mean, it still is in a relationship that you can't get everything from one person, and nor are you designed to. That marriage is a people growing machine, right?
Yeah.
We're designed to hit our edges so that we ourselves grow with, but in difference to our partner. The more that we merge, the more that you become one of you won't be needed, the desire disappears. The more that you differentiate and find who you are and maintain your own sense of anxiety when you hit those edges with your partner, the more that you are called into more blossomed you, which is actually the very thing that creates more attraction and desire and chemistry and mystery in your relationship. Like, it just blows my mind.
And I mean, ultimately, if you think about us as the universe, you know, we are a manifestation of the universe out there, and the universe is always expanding and contracting, and so are we, and so are our relationships, and that is healthy and normal and should be welcomed as opposed to judged or made wrong.
Yes. And because it forces us outside to look, okay, well, I'm not okay here, so where am I going to find that piece of me? Like, it's such a purposeful motion of finding more and more of who you are so you can show up more and more. And when you are able to do that, you do that in your relationship. And I think that is the biggest gift. And I think it's still one of the biggest fallacies that we enter long-term monogamous relationship in is the concept that it's supposed to be easeful and that we come together in this
Or the soulmate idea.
Union. Well, just that we like the same things, that we're together, that you don't rib me in it. I think it's completely looking at the whole purpose of it in completely the wrong way. The purpose of this person is that they love you so much, they see the you that you don't want to see, right? Or the you that you can't see, and they're going to show it to you in a way that you're probably not going to like. And the way that you enter that, you know, there's more ecstasy, there's more pleasure, there's more mystery for this person that you think you get bored of, which is so ridiculous, because the more you realize you don't know about yourself, the more you realize you don't know about this person. And the more you enter your own mystery, the more you see their mystery. And like, this is the juice of a long-term relationship.
It can be an ever-evolving, you know, it can be electric, you know, 15, 20, 30 years later when you're opening to that mystery.
Yes.
And that willingness.
And speaking of, you know, husbands and partnerships and learning, I had a question around, it's a quick one that you have to answer really quickly.
Oh, quick answer.
Yeah, like don't.
Like a quick fire.
Yeah, like quick, like, you know. How would your partners describe you? Go.
Passionate. That's hilarious.
Let's go.
That's pretty much jinx.
Okay, and what about, how would your children describe you?
Intense.
I said fun, but I maybe that's like I want to be fun. But I said fun. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. You guys both said passionate at the same
pretty
time.
funny.
That is
isn't it?
really funny.
It was like literally at the same time too.
I can remember Marcus saying that at our wedding speech.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah, he really talked about it, and it was nice because it was quite affirming. Because sometimes I feel like I'm too much, or my passion is too much. You know, like I feel like that's
my
sometimes.
passion is too much.
I reckon it probably is too much for them, but they love it.
Yeah,
They love the too much.
There's the mystery, right? There's the differentiation.
Yeah.
and I think it's also, you know, we want to see the person we love lit up, even if we don't always understand what they're lit up by. There's something about
so
that.
attractive.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. What do you love and value most about each other? The qualities. You've sort of spoken about how you've met and that sort of loving thing, but try and make this one quick too, so that you don't think too much about it. I want it to be like whatever first comes to your
straight
head.
came to my mind was truth.
I was going to say your heart, just such expansive heart.
It's beautiful. And what do you find, or do you find anything difficult about each other's personalities? Where, have you ever had those moments of like, yeah, like
Well, we had
we're
that
clashing,
podcast,
and
didn't we?
Your truth.
Yeah, my truth.
Which is so funny, right? Because often the thing we love most about the person that we love is also the thing that we hate the most. It's such a double-edged sword because it's always that area of growth. So I absolutely value and love Bridget's truth and would not for this world want to be without it. But sometimes it hurts because it forces me to grow. And I'm so grateful for that. But that doesn't mean you don't get the humanness of the hurt first. Not that you should take that on. That's my stuff. But I recognise that.
So I don't even know what that means. Like, what do you mean by truth? I don't understand that.
Well, I guess sometimes if I'm going through something, you're good at listening and holding the space, but sometimes you'll push those edges of asking the questions that I need to ask to work out the wisdom or the bigger story behind it. I'm a bit like, I don't like that.
Yeah, okay. So I'm a little bit too like...
Which is hilarious because you are very questioning, like in your podcast,
yes, true.
Jules.
Yeah,
you're very
you
like,
are.
so tell me more about that. Like that's your line. Isn't that interesting?
It's funny that you find that hard because I find that sometimes you're the pertinent ways in which you push that button for me can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I also find like your pace sometimes I'm like, my nervous system can't handle that.
I am, yeah.
You know, like,
I am, yes. Yes, I am.
But then I also really see how that's again like teaching me that I can do more and that it's about conditioning myself to find that within me.
Yeah.
The thing that I find hard to, because sometimes I go, oh, but if I was that like busy or I wouldn't have space for this or I wouldn't be able to do that. But
Just
you forced me to see that I could.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, right.
But again, we hit those edges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that we need to grow into is what we will experience in that intimate lover, which Bridget and I spend enough time together that we're like an intimate.
We're pretty much intimate lovers.
Yeah.
They look like intimate lovers the way they look at each other.
Yeah, I mean, this
which is beautiful. I mean, and that's, I really believe you were talking about, there's not just one person out there for you. Like I really don't sign up to the whole soulmate thing. Like I really believe, if you want to choose a life partner, that you have a life partner, and then you've got all these soulmates, you've got all these soul sisters, all these soul brothers, all these people you can connect with, that you can flirt with, that you can have conversations with, that are really so important and so part of your growth, that it's not your main partner that you go home to and sleep next to necessarily. So I really think, and I think even Esther Perel really talks a lot about that as well, like in terms of intimacy, and she brings it into also sexuality and sex life, that are all about, it's all about going out there and bringing that into the relationship.
Yourself.
Yeah, totally.
Totally finding yourself within the union.
Yeah, right. Well, another question that quite a few of the tribe members wanted to know, there was a sense that people felt like they would go home and say to themselves, I can just never be like Julie and Bridget, which is really interesting for me, obviously, as a therapist, because I can see how there's you guys would probably be really perfect projection boards for people, because they'll listen to you guys talk and they'll be thinking, wow, they've just got all their shit together. They're so good, which is surprising in some ways, because you guys also do talk a lot about what you guys get
Because we're conscious of, I suppose, really making sure that we don't put ourselves up there on some pedestal of being expert at things.
Yeah, no, I don't think you do either, but it's just interesting. So I guess my question is, because this is really very much like a conscious parenting, conscious relationship, conscious.
Where are we unconscious?
Podcast. Yeah. Where are you unconscious, or where do you ever just have those days where you're like, I actually don't want to work through this today, and that's okay.
Yep.
I want to be unconscious today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us some examples of or an example each of where that's happened for you guys, where you're just like, I'm just not going there and it's okay?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. I actually think it's every day. I think every day we choose moments of deep consciousness, and we choose moments where we do not want to be at all. I think it's every day. And I think where you're conscious in one area, you're going to be unconscious in another area. Like even, on the Loathing to Loathing group that we're in at the moment, one of the mums had posted about her trigger on screen time. And I was like, yeah, no, I really get it. That it feels so unconscious. And yet here I am being incredibly conscious through a screen with you. But while I'm doing that, I'm incredibly unconscious to my children. You know, that there's always that balance between consciousness and unconsciousness. And I know, Bridget, you've pushed me on this quite a lot as well, because I was always like, oh, embodiment, consciousness, connection, you know, and anything that looked like disconnection, I was deeply hurt by. And now I can really see, I'm asking myself all the time, for everywhere that I think I'm conscious, I'm equally in as many areas and in as many moments unconscious. So I'm always in the moment asking myself, even when I'm feeling a deep embodied, you know, sense of, you know, when you feel really connected to someone or a moment or your children, I'm thinking, where am I also unconscious? And I'll be switched off to other stuff. Yeah. And so I think that we are constantly that. I think the quest is to be conscious about the things that are deeply important to you, so the values, and to know that the things that are not deeply important to you, you don't have to put your energy there. That's right. And that there's purpose in that.
Yeah. And I think also recognising that we always have a conservation of order and chaos. And, you know, this is this reflection of, you know, you and I might have more order perhaps in this intentional parenting thing or these intentional relationship things because they're such a high value to us. But even within that, there's going to be times where, like, you know, even this morning I was woken up by, it's been like days of being woken up by whingy, whiny toddler stuff. And I just don't always want to wake up to that. I don't really want to hear it. And I'm actually quite clear with her about that. I actually don't want to pick you up right now because right now I'm going to do this. And being really congruent in that, and the fact that that might not be very aware or whatever, but it's more important that I'm authentic in those moments than trying to make myself be something that I'm not, and my children feel that anyway.
But I think this is the difference between looking at it as conscious versus unconscious parenting, because I would say the filter that now I see it through is that is still incredibly conscious parenting, because you are being conscious to the you at the center of that dynamic. Yeah. As opposed to the acquiescing and sacrificing of your own inner voice in order to meet the dogma of the external voice on what a good mother or good enough mother is.
And I think this comes from having been so polarized to that. Like, I remember years ago people challenging me on, because I think I'd gone to a DiMartini event and I'd had as one of my traits that I admired about myself was conscious parenting. And I had to collapse that, and I got drilled on it because I thought it was this best thing ever and I held it at this pinnacle, and they got me to see all of the drawbacks to me being that, and where my children miss out on that and what I miss out on from being that, because there is so much that our children can grow through when they don't have us hovering, when they don't have us trying to see everything, you know, and also we get to embody different parts of ourselves when we're not trying to be that. Yeah. So I think, you know, as you're saying, looking for the other side to that, you know, to where am I, to this very thing that I think I'm so great at, well, what am I not showing up for?
And vice versa, the very thing that I think I'm doing really shit right now, how is it also a really gift?
And even just having that awareness of, you know, I hear so often, I wasn't the mother I wanted to be today. And it's like, well, you know, it's also about kind of collapsing that kind of fantasy as well. Like, like some days you're not going to be, and that's okay.
And I think also getting real about the truth of this higher vibration thing everyone's talking about. You vibrate higher the more you can see both sides of something, and the quickest you can see both sides of something. That is when you're vibrating higher. It's not when you're just positive, you know, ecstasy. That's not that's a, you know, waiting for a fall. And so I think that's sort of what we try to embody too. Is I mean, we never can. We're human, right? We're designed to experience, you know, the roller coasters and the highs and lows. But the more that we can bring presence to the two sides of life, the more aligned we can be, I think.
Yeah. So what have you guys found the most nourishing about nourishing the mother? Personally nourishing?
Truth.
Yeah,
here we go.
Truth.
It's my theme word.
It's the truth, and I think it's that shared space to be heard and held and be part of something much bigger than ourselves.
I actually think this has been the biggest gift for me in showing up and being authentic. So realizing that I'm not too much, that I'm just the right amount of whatever for the people that I need to serve in this world. And it feels like such a gift that, I mean, I know that I know that there's lots of women that say, oh, this podcast is so great, but I'm like, this feels like medicine for my soul too.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that we have the platform, the technology, and this group of women who are willing to listen and open up with us when it feels like, in inverted commas, all we're doing is telling a story, telling our story, telling our truth, and to have a space where we can be completely truthful, I feel like is such a gift, because where are we completely truthful in our day-to-day life? Completely and totally who we are. Where are we that? And
we're also creating a space for it as well, which is so important, I think, because you can have the intention, I want to be more authentic in my life. But what you guys do is you carve out that time to record a podcast where you're like in that space where you're like, now it's time to just be with each other and be truthful and talk about what our truth is right now.
Exactly.
I think that's, you know, that's really amazing.
So I'm immensely grateful that we have this community of women who are seriously, honestly willing to listen to us. I'm so grateful.
And all the times that people, you know, there's a lot of women who come to my events and have said, oh, I listened to this podcast and I was in the bath, or, oh, and I was driving here and I just was like, just had this little pocket of time. And like the fact that these women choose their most sacred times.
It's true that they share their time.
That they share it with us. And that these conversations are the tonic that they need to feel themselves as women and mothers. Yeah, I find deeply touching and humbling.
Oh, it makes my vibrations sing when we get those emails that go, this happened for me and I listened to this and this changed my world. And I think, wow.
Yeah.
Like, what a gift that we have this opportunity to impact life in this way. Like, it's small and it's niche and whatever.
But it's huge.
Yeah.
It really is huge. I mean, I really feel like you guys are like changing lives. I mean, it does feel like that. I know.
No, it really does feel like us too. And I just, I can't even put it in words, Lana. I'm like, the fact that we all have this thing in us that if we're willing to put it out in the world has the same tonic. Like, there would be a tonic that I would receive from you in the same platform and from every listener, because, you know, the more we realize we have our own sense of medicine, the more we realize literally everyone, I think, show me that, give me that. Why won't you give me that in this world? You know, I think it's such a gift when we're willing to be warts and all seen.
Yeah.
The tonic that gives other people, I think it's just, can't underestimate it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Was it always going to be called Nourishing the Mother, or did you have other
We hashed out Nurturing the Mother first, and then we changed to Nourishing the Mother.
I think that was always what
it was literally just as we were like, well, we think we're going to do it. We're not sure. We'll register a domain name or something like that. I think it was literally in that split moment. I think it was actually an accident, because we talked about nurturing the mother, and then I'd smacked out the domain name, paid for it, whatever, and then I rang Bridget and went, oh my God, I typed in Nourishing the Mother.
Really?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And you were like, oh, that's perfect anyway. I'm like, yeah, it is. All right.
Good. We're good.
It's just interesting to see the journey there. I know Kirsty and I also, we were going to call ourselves Mums in Focus. And we totally, like, I've even got like a file, like an old files with like Mums in Focus, and we just changed that because we really want it to be about village, inclusive, about dads, about, you know, so, and, you know, you guys always ask others when you interview them, you know, what books have been, what books are your Bibles? Yeah. What books?
Golly gosh, I really have to think about this, because I read so many books.
Just if you look back at your life, like if you were going to impart like books to your daughters, like you had 2 books to give or 3 books to give, what 3 books would you give? They're thinking really hard here.
It would be a toss-up for me in terms of the feminine between Women Who Run with the Wolves and Eating in the Light of the Moon. I'd have to really consider which out of those 2. I don't think you could, if I only had to give 2, I couldn't give both of them. I'd have to pick.
I love Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
But Eating in the Light of the Moon, I actually found almost as like the prereq to, I read it in the reverse order.
What is that book? I've never heard that before.
She's a really interesting woman who grew up in Hawaii. So she has a really deeply tribal, ritual-oriented kind of past. And she focuses specifically on women with eating disorders. But the way that she talks about it, I really extrapolated her. She tells wisdom, probably like you, wisdom through story. And I really understood that the message was not simply for women who had eating disorders, but there was something in what she had to say about everyone, because she talks about the unnamed hunger that we all have, that it's easier to fill with food or to be able to focus on what you're not eating versus what is the unnamed gnawing thing underneath that, you know?
Like what's eating away at you.
Right. And there was so much of what I understood out of that book that I think lays a really beautiful foundation for the imparting of wisdom through story that runs through Nourishing the Mother, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And I think Women Who Run with the Wolves focuses specifically on the wild woman archetype. But I think there's so much to understand before you can leap to the wild woman archetype. I feel like there's such a foundation to be built that the wild woman archetype is almost like the embodiment of so many of those phases. So that's why I would have to pick between those two. And look, I do have to say, the Aware Baby. If I think about my life, that probably was the book that really solidified for me the importance of tears and listening for them. And it's
Alita Salter.
Yeah. And it's completely timeless. Like, I still think the wisdom that's in there. I didn't love the way that it was written, but that you really understood the psychological underpinnings, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I was going to say that because that's on my bookshelf, on my bedside table to give to another mother, actually, that book at the moment. But one of her books, or any of her books, have always been on a side table just to quickly reference. And again, like you, there's some stuff I don't agree with, and like everything, we take what we think is relevant. But that creating space for feelings in children was like, oh my gosh, like where have I not made that okay with myself? Because if this is such a stretch for us to think about children's feelings being worthy to listen to and in and of themselves without having to fix them, how do we find ourselves in adulthood where we are so uncomfortable with being with those states within ourselves? And so I think that was not only a deep insight into children's psychology, but also our human consciousness as well. I read so much nonfiction that I'm trying to think about what have been some profound books for me. And I would say The Alchemist is a big one. I think there's just so much wisdom in that book, and you could read and reread it and get something.
Beautiful symbols in that.
Yeah.
What about values? Surely you couldn't go past DeMartini's values.
Yeah, and the values factor with DeMartini. I mean, for me, I would say the experiences of doing his work have probably been the most life-altering in terms of
that's a
paradigm shifting. Yeah. But I also recognise that so much of the reading and the depth of reading that I've done over decades has paved the way to be able to be open to those concepts, which is essentially a synthesis of, all of the best writing in the world. Yeah, it's not just him, it's him synthesizing everybody. Yeah. And that's also led me on a path to read some of the works of Emerson and some of the prolific writers of history, and they're incredibly heavy, but there might be one or two sentences which might jump out and me go, I get that now. I get what that means. Yeah. And like you and I, we can latch onto popular authors who we think are so profound, and then we go, oh, but that idea came from that, which is actually, the Tao.
I was literally we've been having this conversation a lot as we get ready for our next course, and we're like pulling together everything that we want to put in it. I was saying to Bridget, oh my God, I just have realised, I honestly think I've read about 20 books in the last 2 months. And the more you read, and particularly when you start to really dive back into, further human history and the evolution of religions and, yoga and all of this, the more I go, wow, this person who I thought was like the guru of the 20th century, I realise it's from here and it's from here and it's from here and it's from here, and it makes you really balance that pedestal, and I actually love that.
And to hear and to actually see the illustration of ideas in transformation also makes you realize that anybody we hold up as being holding of truth is an illusion.
Yes.
Because every truth is a truth until it becomes an illusion based on new learning. And so much of society is organized on illusions that it will eventually be proven to be wrong.
Or projection.
Right? Or projection.
Yeah.
And even I'm reading this book called Sex at Dawn at the moment, which is the history of human sexuality and, in fact, how much it's been popularized that humans are naturally monogamous. We're actually not. And so much of, even really established ologies in the world still, are quite distorted based on the ideas of a few, which has been, that whole groupthink mentality can take hold in really established, often unquestionable ologies that we all subscribe to. And so I think, gosh, like we think we know so much, but we really don't. Yeah. And that thirst for finding truth is also what fuels me with Suburban Sandcastles and with any kind of research, right? Is just like, how exciting to think that we know everything when we don't, and how much we can fuel the journey of knowing more based on that. And also trusting what we know, knowing that everyone is on some level simply seeking to expand more. And then there'll be a service within you for somebody else based on the expansion that you're at right now, and that being okay.
And also the timing, I think. Books come into your life kind of like how people and relationships. It's like it's either the right time or not the right time. And sometimes it's just what you needed. And sometimes it's like, I don't know why everyone's going on about this book. It's not for me. You know? I think it sort of sometimes can really partner a particular journey you're going on and help you and help create a bit of space to kind of like just lean into it a little bit and no, that's really interesting.
I feel so triggered by that whole polygamy thing. I'm fucking over that shit.
Polygamy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm finding it really interesting in looking at the journey of women and the feminine, and in fact how bad the agricultural revolution was for women. And in fact, women were actually much more on par with men when we were foragers, because there was much more equality back then. So even the very things that we hold up as like the best things in human civilization can also be the worst. Yeah. And so just even how mind-bending it can be to have an assumption that you've always had challenged and broken open. Like it can be disconcerting but also really empowering.
But what do you mean you're so sick of that shit? Like, what do you mean?
Oh, just I suppose the more you get into, well, look, I guess particularly tantric or sexually experienced circles, the more that we want to experience with other people, and the more you hear this dogma of, well, I just can't be with one person.
Yeah.
But that's because you can't be with yourself.
Yeah.
If you actually had reverence for the fact that an intimate relationship, marriage or not, is designed to grow you, you wouldn't want to go, oh, I'm bored of you. Oh, we're just too unmatched. Oh, we're just too different.
I think that's a language of the animal within us.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, that in and of itself is a whole podcast for me.
Yeah.
But I just have completely different view on, like, I get it. I really get it. I've had plenty of friends and experiences that go down that path, but I think you've missed the purpose of a long-term monogamous relationship, if that's...
Yeah, I absolutely I agree with you. But it is interesting to see how, I think that...
From goddess worship cults where we're talking about multi-orgasmic and
also,
polyamory.
But history is also perceived in such a way, just like Bible stories, to serve the current goals of the society in question. So it's always
you can read into it whatever you want to read into it.
And it's crafted in order to get maximum civilization for that period, not always the truth.
I was thinking about the Bible stories when you were talking, because I was thinking of a book that's really, I felt like Women Who Run with the Wolves is one of them, but The Red Tent. I don't know if you read that.
I did read that.
Yeah.
I did love that one.
I really loved that one.
I hated the ending though.
I don't even remember the ending. Don't say it in case women will go and read it. But just that, I just remember being so fascinated by, like, firstly all the women being together, but also having to manage like sharing
wing of
the
a
husband.
society.
Yeah. And like I'd never sort of was like, wow, that is like so interesting. But that sounds like another whole podcast that you
really
guys
consider.
Maybe that's one
can go into.
because there's been a lot of stuff in this book I've been reading that I've thought, wow, like what is okay in one society or in one area can morph and transform and be absolute taboo in another.
Well, maybe it's also just more about it's like the language. Like it doesn't have to be like we don't have to physically be in multiple sexual relationships, but it's actually like it's like that fantasy thing or like bringing in multiple other dimensions or aspects or passions or connections into and translate that into what we, our modern time, I guess, most popular way of being in a relationship, which is the being in one long-term relationship eventually.
It's totally range, right? I mean, John Wineland talks about this. It's range. How much range are you willing to show your partner? How much range do you make safe for yourself?
Yes.
Can you only be this here and that there, and you're anticipating someone else's needs without knowing them, so you're only playing to that what you to which you think versus like this. So, and this is the whole purpose of relationship being people growing, because all of that forces you into growth if you're willing to stay there for it. I think if we entered relationship thinking I will learn more about myself here and I hold that in esteem, that relationship would go very differently.
Yeah.
Because like we said in that other podcast, there's nothing wrong with your relationship. Everybody has relationship issues and sex or sexual issues. Literally everybody has something or multiple things. And the fact that that is normal and on purpose, not off purpose, I think is the part that's missing from that conversation.
Yeah. It's a belief and intention with which you take into something too, like what are you expecting it to be? If you're expecting it to be always supportive and then you're set up to fail, essentially.
Anyway, we totally digressed, but I was just like got a rush when you were talking about
I think that's going to be, I can feel a podcast coming on. I'm the birthing of a podcast right now. My final question is the final question you also ask people when you interview them about the billboard. The billboard quote. I thought I'd throw it back at you.
Oh, God.
It's a hard one.
It is actually a hard one.
I like you're always in the right place at the right time. That's my favourite one.
It's all you.
Show up with your full heart.
That's lovely.
Amen, sisters.
Yeah, to all of them, right? Lana, thank you so much for making the enormous journey down and spending such precious time with us as well.
It's such a pleasure. You guys are very special to me and very special to, I know, all of the members of the tribe.
Thank you.
And thank you for everything that you give us and you give the world.
Oh, thanks, Lana.
so much.
We need you guys. We need you guys here, and
we need everyone.
Yeah, you need us.
Yeah, totally. Right.
Yeah. So
it's such an interlinked world. So I just think the more you show up, the greater that expansion becomes, which is exactly what you're doing with the Parents Village.
Yes.
Which we so celebrate as well.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you.
Thanks, Lana. We so hope you enjoyed that interview and chat that we had with Lana. And it was a big one, that one, but I hope it gave you more insight into our world and how important it is for us to create this space for you. So if you want to connect with us, it is nourishingthemother.com.au and Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with Julie at thepleasurenutritionist.com and with me, suburbensandcastles.com. Remember to nourish the mother to rock the family, and we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This year, the Wellness Summit returns.
For those of you on your own health journey, you know that a lot of times it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you think you're doing well and then something else pops up. It's like you're always learning. It's not something that just happens overnight and suddenly you're well.
If I actually had been so wrong about this really important thing in my life, what else was I wrong about? And it got me down this place of questioning all the concepts that I had. And then I came to one question, which was, who am I beyond concept?
When I was a little kid, I really always had trouble with food intolerances. I realised that there was a lot to be said for the way you eat.
You come to the same place that I came to, and it's a place of complete freedom.
Joe Witten and Fuad Kassab feature at the 2018 Wellness Summit. Bigger and better than ever. Tickets on sale Friday, May 4 at thewellnesssummit.com.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.